What I'm about to tell you has no real explanation. It's the strangest thing that has ever happened to me or to anyone I personally know. My name's Rachel, and I work late nights at a small dive bar about 30 minutes from my house. It's not exactly by choice. It's just the reality of living out in a rural area. Jobs are scarce, and you take what you can get. Most nights are uneventful. I pour drinks, clean glasses, listen to the same old jukebox songs, and maybe chat with a couple of regulars. The bar itself isn't anything special, but it's steady work. The night this happened started off no different. Nothing strange, nothing memorable. After closing, I counted the till, locked everything up, and headed to my car. The drive home was usually my favorite part of the night. 30 minutes of quiet back roads, cutting through farmland and patches of thick woods. Hardly any traffic, hardly any lights, just winding curves in the dark. But that night, the fog rolled in heavy, thicker than I'd seen in years. The kind that swallows the road whole until it feels like you're driving into a wall of white. Even with my brights on, I could barely see more than a couple of car lengths ahead. It slowed me down, and honestly, it started to piss me off. I was exhausted. I just wanted to get home. I was maybe halfway back when I noticed it. Through the fog, just off to the right side of the road, there was a faint yellow blinking light. At first, I thought it was a reflector, maybe a roadside marker. But as I kept driving, I realized something strange. It wasn't getting closer, and it wasn't getting farther. It just stayed there, pulsing in a slow, steady rhythm, almost like it was pacing me, keeping speed with my car, hidden in the fog. A knot formed in my stomach. I can't explain it, but something about that light felt wrong. It wasn't just a light, it felt intentional. I slowed down, almost to a crawl, hoping the light would keep moving and I'd finally get a better sense of what it was. But it didn't. The slower I went, the slower it seemed to go. Every blink matched me perfectly, like it was tethered to my car. That's when I stopped completely. I sat there on the empty road, my headlights cutting into the fog, waiting. And the light stayed there too, blinking at the same rhythm. It hadn't moved an inch. My pulse picked up. Something was watching me. I didn't know how I knew, but I felt it in my bones. Then the light changed. The blinking didn't stop, but it grew brighter. Each pulse flared like a flame catching wind. Hotter, stronger, more alive. It wasn't random. It felt like a signal. Like it had noticed me stopping and was responding. That was enough for me. I decided to turn around. I reached down to shift into reverse. And that's when I realized the engine wasn't running. The silence hit me hard. No hum, no vibration, nothing. I never touched the key. I knew I hadn't. But the car was dead. My hands started shaking. And my hands don't shake. I pour drinks for a living. Steady hands are the only reason I have a job. But right then, they wouldn't stop trembling. I turned the key again. Nothing. Again. Still dead. And all the while, that yellow light grew brighter. It wasn't blinking anymore. It was feeding. I reached for my phone. If nothing else, I wanted proof. But when I tapped the screen, it stayed black. Dead. Completely drained. And I had checked it at the bar before leaving. I still had at least 20%. That's when the light flared. Not just brighter, blinding. Like staring into a miniature sun. I threw my arms up, squeezed my eyes shut. The inside of the car turned white hot. Every shadow erased. 10 seconds, maybe more. And then, silence. Darkness. Just fog again. The light was gone. Hands shaking, I turned the key one more time. And the engine roared back to life. Perfect. As if nothing had ever happened. I didn't waste another second. I drove the rest of the way home, gripping the wheel, so hard my knuckles hurt. My eyes locked on the road, afraid to even blink. Because part of me thought, if I looked away, even for a moment, that light would come back. But it didn't. Not that night. Not ever again. I've told this story to everyone I know, family, friends, even some regulars at the bar. I've heard every explanation you can imagine. Fulgulates, reflections, electrical problems, even UFO theories. But none of them explain why my engine and phone died at the exact same time, why the light seemed to react to me stopping, or why it felt so alive. And to this day, when I drive those back roads at night, and the fog creeps in thick and heavy, I catch myself looking to the right side of the road, terrified that blinking light might be waiting for me again. This happened a couple of years back. My name's Daniel, and I've been a long-haul truck driver for most of my adult life. By now, I'm used to the long stretches of nothing, the empty highways, the miles of silence broken only by the hum of my rig. That night, I was on my second-to-last delivery of a long loop across the state. I was tired, running on fumes, but determined to finish the job so I could finally head home. The route had me cutting through one of those desert highways. The kind with no towns for miles, no gas stations, barely any lights at all. Just two lonely lanes slicing through open desert under a sky littered with stars. Out there at night, it feels like you're the only person left on the planet. I was about an hour away from my next drop when I first noticed it. A dark SUV in my side mirror. At first, it didn't seem unusual. Vehicles come and go even in the desert. But this one was different. It didn't tailgate. It didn't try to pass. It just hovered back there, always keeping the same distance. No matter how much I adjusted my speed, it adjusted too. It stayed there shadowing me for nearly 40 miles. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe the driver was nervous about passing a semi in the dark. Maybe they thought it wasn't safe. But I drove through multiple passing zones, clear, open stretches, and the SUV never made a move. It just sat back there like it was waiting for something. By 2 in the morning, it had me on edge. So I pulled into a small roadside rest area. Not a truck stop, just a dirt lot with a few faded spaces, a tin shed, and a pair of vending machines under a flickering bulb. I figured I'd stretch my legs, grab a soda, and, most importantly, give whoever was behind me the chance to pass. But when I glanced back before shutting off the engine, my stomach dropped. The SUV pulled in too. It parked way off in the corner, engine silent, lights off. At that point, my unease turned into anger. I climbed down from my cab, slamming the door, ready to march over and demand answers. But as soon as I started toward it, the SUV roared to life. Tires screeched, gravel flew, and it peeled out of the lot like it was fleeing the cops. I tried to catch a glimpse of the driver, but the windows were tinted pitch black. In seconds, the tail lights vanished into the night. Relieved, but unsettled, I shook my head and turned back to the vending machines. They were empty, of course. The one flickering bulb buzzed overhead, casting sickly shadows over the cracked pavement. By then, exhaustion hit me hard, so I decided to take a nap. I walked around my rig, double-checked the locks on the trailer doors, and climbed back inside the cab. I reclined my seat, cracked the window to let in the desert air, and told myself it would be fine. That SUV was long gone. There was no way anyone would come back out here. Sleep came quicker than I expected. I should probably mention, truckers like me become light sleepers. You have to be. One wrong sound outside your cab could mean someone's trying to steal your cargo, or worse. Maybe an hour later, I woke up. A faint crunching sound reached my ears, gravel shifting under slow footsteps. I froze, didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, I carefully slid one finger under the edge of the window blind and peeked outside. Two figures stood near the rear wheels of my trailer, crouched low, studying the latches. One had a small flashlight, signaling back and forth. The other pulled something from a bag. Both cutters. My blood ran cold. I didn't have a weapon on me. Most of us don't. But I wasn't about to let anyone crack open my trailer and take everything I'd worked to haul across the state. Without thinking, I slammed my palm on the air horn. The blast shattered the silence, echoing across the desert. The reaction was instant. Both figures leapt back like they'd been electrocuted. They dropped the tools and scrambled into the brush. And then headlights. That same SUV burst back into view, engine growling, lights still off. It swung around wildly and vanished down the highway again. I didn't even have time to step outside before it was gone. I called the police. Figured I should at least get the incident on record. They told me to sit tight until a unit arrived. An hour later, 2 officers pulled up. We inspected the trailer together. Sure enough, fresh pry marks scarred the lower latch arm, exactly where those men had been working. But the locks had held. The officers told me it wasn't unusual. Kind of a theft. It happens more often than people realize, especially along that stretch of desert highway. They said the SUV had probably been following me all night, waiting for the right moment to strike. That was the end of it, technically. But not for me. Even now, years later, I can't shake the image. That SUV lurking in my mirrors. The sound of gravel crunching under footsteps in the dark. And the thought that if I hadn't woken up when I did, I might not be here telling this story. There's nothing better than a night drive in the summer. The warm air rushing in through the open windows. The steady hum of tires eating up empty highway. The feeling that the world is asleep while you're wide awake behind the wheel. My name's Ethan, and that night, I was behind the wheel of my dad's pride and joy, a midnight blue BMW M3. I wasn't reckless, not exactly, but I wasn't shy about opening it up either. Out here, there aren't many cars at night. No cups, just me, the road, and German engineering begging to stretch its legs. The stereo was off. No music, no distractions, just the growl of the engine, the whip of air across my face. Driving like that is one of the few things that makes me feel completely free. At some point, I got this weird urge. It wasn't planned, it just hit me. Instead of staying on the highway, I wanted to take the back roads, test the handling on those narrow, twisting lanes. It was the kind of urge you can't ignore, like if you don't give in, you'll regret it all night. So I did. I pulled off at the next exit and found myself weaving through dark, empty neighborhoods. The roads were tight, full of sharp bends and blind corners. Exactly what I'd been craving. The streets were deserted. No cars, no people. Just me, the M3, and the asphalt. Until I saw it. A sudden flicker of light in the road ahead. I slammed on the brakes, tires squealing, barely missing it. When I stopped, my headlights revealed what I'd nearly plowed into. A shopping cart, just sitting there in the dead center of the road. It didn't make sense. There were no houses nearby, no stores. Who wheels a shopping cart into the middle of a dark back road at nearly midnight and just leaves it? Against my better judgment, I put the car in park, turned on the hazards, and stepped out. The air hit me immediately, warm, heavy, with a faint buzz of crickets and the soft ticking of the cooling engine behind me. Empty. Just a beat-up, ordinary cart. Still, something about it made me uneasy. I turned back toward the car, and that's when I saw them. Two dark figures sprinting out from the farmland beside the road. Full speed. Straight at me. For a second, my brain refused to process it. Then instinct took over. I bolted back to the BMW, slammed the door, and punched the start button. The engine roared to life just as the first figure reached the passenger side. One stopped a few feet short, but the other? He ran straight into the door with a bone-rattling thud. He didn't even slow down, didn't even brace. When I turned, his face was inches from the glass. Bloodshot eyes locked on mine, torn clothes hanging off him like he'd sprinted through barbed wire. Hair damp, sticking to his forehead, his skin smeared with dirt and blood. But it wasn't the blood that froze me in place. It was his expression, not a scowl, not a smile, just vacant, like he wasn't even fully human. He didn't care about the blood dripping down his side. He didn't care about the dent he'd just put in the car. All he cared about was the handle. He clawed at it, yanking, fumbling, trying to rip the door open. That broke the spell. I slammed the car into gear, jerked the wheel, and swerved around the shopping cart. The BMW gripped the pavement, tires screaming, and I tore out of there without looking back. My hands shook the entire drive home. Part of me was still terrified, but another part felt guilty. That guy was bleeding bad. He needed help. And instead of helping, I ran. I debated turning back, but reason won out. Whatever that was, it wasn't safe. I called the police, gave them the location, and let them handle it. When I finally pulled into the driveway, I had to see the damage. That's when I noticed it. Blood, smeared across the passenger door, streaking the side mirror, dotting the rear quarter panel. Way more than I expected. There's also a dent in the door, subtle but undeniable. But the blood was unreal. Far too much for the brief impact. It was almost inhuman. The next morning, my dad saw the car and exploded. Didn't even let me explain. He raged about irresponsibility, about costs, about how stupid it was to take the car out at night. To him, it looked like I'd hit a deer. It wasn't until after I scrubbed every inch of blood off the paint that he finally softened, finally listened. And let's just say, That was one of the last times he let me joyride after dark. The police never call me back. No reports. No answers. The best explanation I've come up with? Some kind of setup. Maybe squatters or drifters trying to lure someone out of their car with a shopping cart trick. And I was almost their victim. But sometimes I wonder if it was just people or something else entirely. Because when I think about those eyes, vacant, bloodshot, inhuman, I'm not so sure anymore.